Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Black and Azul, episode number 18. My name is Charles Wollin. I've got Jamon Moore off to my right side. I've got Alex Morgan flanked off on the left side, the two wingers for the San Jose Earthquakes. Things could kind of be heating up in a way, so to speak, with a fantastic win last week against Sacramento Republic, and now going into another Open Cup match. Then they've got Houston, then they've got LA Galaxy. Let's preview this, but let's first throw it out to the fourth member of our team, Joel Soria, who's at LAFC's Bank of California Stadium with a little report for us.
Everyone, Joel Soria outside Bank of California Stadium in the heart of Los Angeles, where the San Jose Earthquakes are going to be taking on LAFC in the 16th round of the US Open Cup. A couple of updates. Florian Jungwirth did not travel with the team. The German stayed in San Jose and is commencing his recuperation on his knee. He had a knock during the game against the Republic, had an MRI shortly after. Luckily, it came up negative. No damage to any ligaments whatsoever. He, Shea Salinas, Danny Husin, and Aníbal Godoy, who had to leave the Panamanian concentration early and is missing the Gold Cup, are recuperating. The 11 is going to look a little different this time around. You're going to have Guram Kasha slotting in for the German. He's going to be pairing up with Francois Folter. Tarbo remains at goal. Lopez is going to be on the left side, Tommy on the right. In the heart of the field, you're going to have Judson taking over for Luis Felipe. Accompanying him is going to be Jackson Ewell, who's back from U23 camp. And up top, it's going to look exactly the same to what it did from last week. Wondolowski up top. Underneath him is going to be Vaco. On the left side, please expect Espinosa to start. And on the right, Magnus Eriksson. Please follow all updates on my Twitter at Soria Joel Football, and follow our work on QuakesEpicenter.com. Signing off from the heart of Los Angeles, Joel Soria.
Amazing and intrepid reporting from Joel Soria. He'll be back with us next week for episode number 19 of Black and Azul. But Alex Morgan, your prognosis after last week's kind of heroic 4-3 game. Vaco absolutely terrific in that game, and this is well poised now. The Quakes beat LAFC in the preseason, but they got thumped at home 5-0 with LAFC, their fourth competitive match against LAFC. Where do you see this going?
Look, I think it was a good win for the Quakes last week. They got the job done. It wasn't the prettiest match by any means, but they got the job done, and they're into the round of 16 to face LAFC. This will be their toughest test, for certain. I think Joel brought some really important news. You're restricted in terms of your roster to 5 international players. The Quakes also have a host of other injuries they're carrying. So it will be interesting to see how they line up against LAFC. He gave us a little taste. I think for me, the big news is that Florian Jungwirth, the center back, starting center back, is out with a knee injury, and that throws a wrench in the Quakes' plans in the middle.
Yeah, it really does. And so there are some options, but they are a little bit more limited than I think we'd like. And so we saw in the last couple games that he's gone to Francois Folter and been able to use him in the free role while Jungwirth was used in order to do the man marking. What we expect is that it's probably going to be Guram Kasha to take up the 5th international spot because 4 were used in the last game. And now Guram Kasha is likely going to be part of the man marking system, expecting Francois Folter will continue to do the free role. We'll see what Matthias does. There are other options like Jimmy Ockford, but this is where we expect things to go.
I sense that could be a weakness for the Quakes. When the Quakes faced LAFC earlier this season, they were absolutely drubbed. 5-0 loss. And one of their biggest vulnerabilities was down the middle. LAFC had lots of darting runs in behind, diagonal runs. And the Quakes don't have a lot of pace at the center back position with Jungwirth, Kasha, and Cummings. They really don't. And with Jungwirth out, with Folter filling in, Folter hasn't been a consistent starter for the Quakes, I think that will be a vulnerability for them, and that doesn't bode well.
Yeah, the Quakes against LAFC in the 5-0 loss, they weren't very good at handing men off. It was something that they didn't really address until the next game against Portland. And so they were in a situation there where they just weren't well prepared for the type of opponent they were going to be facing. Shea Salinas had the job of marking Carlos Vela in that game. And unfortunately for the Quakes, Carlos Vela decided he did not want to play in the Gold Cup with Mexico. So thereby he is available for selection with LAFC. Up top in their last Open Cup game, they started 6 of their starters. It's a really powerful lineup, and the Quakes are going to need to find ways to match up with the players who are on the field with that type of offensive firepower. I think where LAFC could be a little bit vulnerable is in the back. Walker Zimmerman is with the U.S. national team, so they don't quite have their full complement. Steven Beitashour was not used in the last Open Cup game. We do think that they're going to go a little bit younger in the back. There could be some opportunity there.
Yeah, I think the biggest prize of the winner of this match that they get to host as well the next match, which potentially is the Galaxy waiting in the wings, or Portland Timbers that they play right now. So we'll kind of see how that goes, so to speak. But since the LAFC match, the Earthquakes have had 6 wins in all competitions, 4 ties, and just 2 losses. 25 goals scored, 16 conceded, and 3 clean sheets. And I know that after we did this show, after the LAFC game, it was this point where, are things going to get actually worse, or are they going to get better? And clearly we've seen them get better for this team. But the notion of playing against LAFC in the next round is something that LAFC also wants to win it just as much as the Quakes. Portland Galaxy, that's a different story. But I think LAFC and so much energy behind this specific trophy for this team presents an interesting opportunity, but also the greatest challenge.
It does seem that LAFC is going to try to get as much hardware as they can this season. They seem to be going for it in the Open Cup. The Quakes definitely have their work cut out for them, particularly on the road in the hostile environment of Banc of California Stadium. The question is, really, we're going to find out, I think, just how much this team has improved. On the road, this team has actually been more consistent than they have been at home. 3 of the 4 early losses were at home. And in the road game, they were a little bit more competitive. Since then, on the road, they've amassed a win as well as several draws. So there is a thought here that the Quakes may be able to play a little bit tighter, bunker a little bit more, maybe be able to catch LAFC pushing forward a little too hard, particularly down the wing where Carlos Vela usually is at. And often what you'll find there is that the outside back will bomb forward a bit and get caught out of position. Could be an opportunity to counter. We'll see what Matias Almeida does if he tries to take advantage of those situations.
Look, I think it'll be a good test for the Quakes. Obviously, the 5-0 loss to LAFC earlier in the season was a low light. It'll be interesting to see how much they've progressed now. It'll be a good test, and I think if they can avoid the embarrassment of a 5-0 defeat, I think that will be a victory.
Yeah, we need to see a performance out of Tommy Thompson and Marco Lopez. I believe that they are going to be really the keys to this particular game. We saw Tommy Thompson got burned on that last goal against Sacramento Republic. Also was at fault partially for the first goal of the game as well. Definitely a less than stellar performance for him. He's going to really need to be able to step that up against the wing play that LAFC is going to bring.
Yeah, in central midfield, they were kind of outclassed, especially in the first half against Sacramento. But having Jackson Yuill back, having Judson potentially in the starting 11, a personal favorite of mine. He does all the dirty work in front of the back 4 and really kind of sets the tempo, sets the pace. I think it'll be interesting to see that central midfield partnership and hopefully maybe see if it comes to fruition, in this next match against LAFC.
Yeah, I was very disappointed with San Jose's central midfield against Sacramento. You had Calvillo and Fernandez in the middle, and I thought they both failed to have a connection. I thought defensively they were both suspect, and they got caught out quite a bit, and that was a big problem for the Quakes. Sacramento were really able to punish them. And I think that both in the future, I'd like to see both of them show more on the defensive side. I think Jackson Yuill and Judson's a combination that we haven't really seen much of, so it's hard to say how much chemistry they'll have. But in the middle, they'll be linchpins for the Quakes, and I think they'll be very important for their success heading into tomorrow.
Yeah, let's move forward and let's talk about the Gold Cup, which is now kicked off. The U.S. men's national team and right back Nick Lima with the national team started last night. Good performance for the U.S. men's national team. Took about 41 minutes to break down Guyana, then going out 4-0 winners in that. But it is significant having Nick Lima being part of the national team at this time. His first kind of competitive start for the national team and getting in there. And obviously you see a lot of buzz on Twitter. How do you think he did?
Look, I think Nick Lima has an amazing opportunity. Now that Tyler Adams is out for the Gold Cup, he can really claim a spot for his own on a higher international level and show what he can do. I think it's an amazing couple months he's had. It's a testament to his work ethic and his talent. You know, he was really out of favor in the San Jose Earthquakes side a couple months ago. He missed a large part of the preseason for the U.S. men's national team camp. He then struggled to return to the lineup, and he was benched for a while. But he slowly fought his way back into the lineup, and now we see he's reaping the rewards. I think even though the United States have, in their last couple friendlies, been far below average, he's been one of the bright spots.
Yeah, it's obviously not good to lose Tyler Adams because regardless of whether he plays right back or central midfield, Tyler Adams is a key part of the U.S. national team, and we won't quite get to see what this team is capable of without him until we get into World Cup qualifying now. That said, big opportunity for Nick Lima. I thought he showed well in the first game. The right back position feels like it's been solidified for him so long as he continues to turn in those types of performances. Next up, Trinidad and Tobago, which is, of course, the team that they lost out on the World Cup qualifying to in an away game. They got to take care of business against Trinidad and Tobago this time. And then Panama. The Earthquakes' own Harold Cummings is on Panama, and it's possible that Lima and Cummings will be a matchup in that particular game, which could be kind of interesting. We do know now, though, that Anibal Godoy is not going to be in the Gold Cup, and I think it's a big loss for Panama. Yep. It's a big loss for the Earthquakes in the fact that, as Joel Soria reported last week, there are many teams looking at Anibal Godoy right now, and it's possible that the opportunity for the Quakes to be able to do some good business might be lost with him having to be on the sideline due to sounds like a pretty serious groin injury from everything that we've heard. So it's possible that he's not only going to miss the Gold Cup, it's possible the Quakes will have to learn to live without him for a little while longer as well. So loss for Panama, loss for the Earthquakes for sure.
Jamon, let's get a little tactical here. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but we often see Nick Lima slide in as a defensive midfielder that also kind of attacks as well. It's a strange position that Greg Berhalter puts him in, and a different type of base position that most managers don't employ. You usually sometimes see 3 in the back out of Italian managers, or 3-4-3, and it sometimes does turn into a 3-4-3 sometimes. But as you see this progressing, and as you see the U.S. having a difficult time maybe breaking down a TNT or a Panama, do you see him kind of fitting into that specific position again? And for those viewers out there that are watching, describe that to them a little bit more, what I'm talking about.
It's a very interesting position that Greg Berhalter has asked Nick Lima to play in times in the past, and he did not ask him to play that the other night. However, what basically he does is whenever the offense goes forward, Nick Lima becomes another 6. He slots in alongside Michael Bradley, and now you've got 2 defensive midfielders effectively. As the attack wanes and as the ball is lost, then he basically plays it by ear, whether he remains in that position or he moves back over to the right back position. We didn't see it the other night in the 4-3-3 game against Guyana. We're not sure if we will see it again. There definitely has been a lot of people who had wanted to see Nick back in a natural right back position to see how he did. And I think, like I said, he did well overall. But one of the things to consider about Nick Lima as a right back is when he plays wide, he really wants to get down that line, and he wants to get in for a cross. Now, he put in a couple dangerous crosses that the U.S. was not able to get fully on the end of. One of the things to think about with Nick Lima is, from a statistical perspective, he actually crosses on a below average basis. And that might surprise some Quakes fans, but the statistics are very clear that he's not fantastic at being able to complete those crosses. They're dangerous. It's difficult for people sometimes to get on the end of them. What we've seen is that there are other players on the team, such as Espinoza, who have been able to hit that ball much lower across the middle and been able to see that finished off. Lima tends to hit the ball about head high. And so I tend to feel like he's actually better off in a situation where he is in the middle. Because when he's in the middle, when you see him get his assists, when you see him get his goals, when you see him at his most dangerous, in fact, had a shot on goal later in the game, it's usually when he's in the middle. And that's usually when Nick Lima's at his best. So it'll be interesting to see what Greg Berhalter does at this point now that he's seen Nick Lima in both roles.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the great Michael Essien, the Ghanaian player who could play as a defensive midfielder, could play as a box-to-box, and play as a right wing-back during the Chelsea days with Jose Mourinho and Chelsea chasing a goal, and he would play so far high up the field, but also be able to slot in and make tackles in there. It's nice for Nick. It's another tool for Nick, and potentially is another position for him to play further in the future. For those of you that are tuning in, this is an interactive show. We're going to take some questions here shortly, but please ping us your questions. You can do so on the right side of the screen there. There's already a couple questions. Don't worry, we will get to them. Your questions are the lifeblood of our show. But before that, the Quakes have two other matches coming up in the league that are pretty important. Against Houston next Wednesday, and then the California Clasico at Stamford Stadium against old rivals LA Galaxy. Both teams doing all right so far in the league. Houston in the 4th position so far. LA Galaxy in the 2nd position. And a big, huge chance for the Quakes to pick up points at home. Alex Morgan.
Yeah, I think these next couple weeks will be a very important test for the Quakes. They play, I think it's four of the 6 teams ahead of them in the table in the next 2 weeks. So if they're going to show that they're really competing for a playoff spot, I think they'll need to come away with 5 or 6 points from these 4 games.
It's definitely true because remember that the Quakes dropped those 3 early home games, and so it really kind of put them behind on a home point basis for what they will need in order to get to the playoffs. And they've kind of picked up that pace, which is great. But Houston, as you said, 4th place in the West. Houston's only played 13 games, and here's a little bit of interesting facts about them. 9 of those games have been at home, only 4 of them on the road. They've played the fewest games in the Western Conference, and on the road, they're just not the same team that they have been at home. At home, they have 6 wins and 3 draws, no losses. But on the road, 1 win to go along with 3 losses. Historically, they've not been a great team on the road. It's an opportunity for the Quakes. They definitely need to take care of business against Houston.
Almost better that they get them first instead of the Galaxy, because they were also knocked out at home in the Open Cup as well. I mean, you know, this is a good opportunity here. And then, of course, the Galaxy coming to town, Stamford Stadium, California Clasico. The Quakes have done this, I think, since 2010. My first year on staff, actually, was the first game at Stamford Stadium. Previously, for all of you nerds out there and really want to know, the Quakes, when they came back, hosted David Beckham at the Oakland Coliseum, which was quite an interesting setup, if you will. But Quakes, Galaxy, always going to be a fun match, always going to be a fun time. Both sets of supporters, obviously, no love lost, really, between them. Let's go ahead and take a question here, and I've been eyeing it for a few minutes, and I've got a big answer for it, but I want to throw it to you first, Alex. Is Judson the right replacement if Godoy is out for a longer period, or would it be better to have Luis Felipe or even Flo once Cummings and Kasia are back?
I think Judson would be the right replacement. I think it gets tricky with the center back situation, as you say. I think Florian Jungwirth has actually been the best Earthquake center back this season. I think Kasia might be the best natural center back that the Quakes have on their roster, but he really hasn't been able to adapt to Almeida's system as well as we would have hoped. So he's been usurped by Jungwirth in that center back position. So if you have Jungwirth in that center back position, which is where I think he should stay, then Judson's really your only option. I wasn't impressed with how Fernandez played against Sacramento, so I think Judson has to be your man there.
It's the Quakes are going to have to adapt a bit because Anibal Godoy is the person that they play through, particularly when they play out of the back. And he passes at around a 90% rate. If you take a look at the numbers for the other central midfielders, they're nowhere close to that. So they're going to have to adapt a bit. What I suspect they'll do is they'll probably have Jackson Yueill drop back a little bit more, get on the ball, and be the person that helps get them to play out of trouble and be able to get the ball, particularly out to the wing, spray the ball around like he's capable of doing. It'll be a little bit different look for the Quakes. I think it could actually be exciting, but definitely I think they will struggle passing a bit without Godoy.
Yeah, I really like Judson. I've liked him since he's kind of come to San Jose. A little bit strange as to how he's been left out of the side and not a first-place choice off of the bench or featured really in the Open Cup. I know that they've got the 5 spots as you like, but Judson for me is a modern-day defensive midfielder named after Claude Makelele, kind of in the Makelele physique and build. You can see he's that also old-school guy that's done his work as a defensive midfielder and knows how to kind of patrol in front of the back four. But maybe his switch of play, you're right, his passing ability isn't that of Godoy, and Godoy actually probably doesn't run around as much as Judson does and hangs out, is a little bit more chill, is a little bit more positive on the field, and allows the Quakes to shift from left to right or right to left through central midfield. And that's a good point that you make there. But right. I still think Judson has a huge role to play in this side, and I think fans are really going to come to like him quite a bit more for just the way that he plays, the way he is.
One of the concerns that the Quakes had last season was defensively was their ability to handle the counter. One of the things that if you take a look at the videos that are available on Judson, he shows extremely well his ability to go side to side and be able to shut down counters. You haven't seen the Quakes get countered as much this season. And a part of that is due to Almeida's system. Part of that is due to players like Judson and Yueill stepping up in a better way defensively than he has in the past, and your wingers also getting more engaged on the defensive side. Teams haven't really been able to counter the Quakes as much. Now we'll probably see a different look from LAFC, of course, but I think overall the plan so far has worked well. Judson just needs opportunities at this point.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. The reason Judson hasn't been in the lineup is because Jackson Yueill has really stepped up defensively. At the start of the season, the Quakes were asking Judson to do so much at the back, covering the fullbacks, bombing forward down the wing. But since the Quakes started to get accustomed to the system, and then Jackson Yueill came in and he played much better defensively than he has in past years, that's the reason why we haven't seen as much of Judson.
Next question is a two-part question. I'm going to take both questions at the same time. Remember, keep your questions coming. It's from Brian Aboag, and his first question is, any news on a third DP? And his second question is potential new signings. Both kind of go hand in hand here. Jamon?
Yeah, we haven't heard too much. There's just been a little bit of rumbling about a couple players out of South America. I haven't heard Joel or anyone else yet confirm that these are actual rumors, but there's always rumors going. I think then there's been the rumors also about the potential of selling Godoy. So we haven't yet really gotten into the point where we're hearing names all that much attached to some of these rumors. In some cases we have, but nothing really to report at this point for me.
We have confirmed, obviously, that the Quakes are in the market for a third DP this summer. They confirmed that into a survey that Sports Illustrated sends every year, that they're in the market. But in terms of names, I haven't heard any substantial rumors that I can report as of yet.
Maybe Joel will have some news when he comes back next week.
All right, some Quakes-related news, specifically on the Spanish media and content side. Very important and really uplifting and exciting that the Quakes are going to be producing 3 matches solely on local Spanish television on Telemundo 48, so that's Telemundo 48, and Carlos Cesar Rivera, who does the radio broadcasts, will be doing the TV broadcasts, a mentor to all of us here on the show and a supporter of the show. We couldn't be any more delighted. And then there's also a Spanish podcast led by the NBC Sports Now Earthquakes PR man, Monty Rossetti, that just launched this week. And you could tell there was a special moment between him and Matias Almeida. He put a little video recap on. It's important for the Quakes to have this kind of content on there. All languages should be involved covering this team, and I think it's really important for the Latino market here in order to have that kind of coverage.
I think it's fantastic on both fronts because Monty Rossetti, no stranger to the Quakes podcast last year. 74 Till Infinity was one that he was on regularly. Now he gets to show that Spanish, and he's been fantastic for us in helping us be able to translate player interviews and such in the locker room. I think he's going to do a fantastic job with that particular show.
And I think it's a long time coming. I think the Quakes need to be reaching out to the Spanish-speaking community more, especially now that you have such a prominent coach as Matias Almeida, as famous as he is in Latin America.
Moving on a little bit to youth focus here, Sophie Jones, who is in the Quakes Academy and has been in the Academy for quite some time now, just won the Gatorade Player of the Year, which is a huge honor. All states have a Gatorade Player of the Year, but she won it for the state of California. And also, Alex, you guys are schoolmates.
Yes, and I believe she is actually also the national Player of the Year, I believe, for girls. Yeah, I had the opportunity to interview her late last year. She's worked incredibly hard. She's sacrificed a lot, and we're very happy to see her get this award, and we wish her the best luck going forward. She's going to be playing soccer for Duke next year in college, and hopefully looking forward for the U.S. women's national team as well.
Let the rumors about an NWSL team in San Jose continue and get stronger, because if the Earthquakes can retain Sophie Jones and be able to start a team around her, could mean great things in the NWSL.
All right, our next question comes in from Jeff Vikos, and he writes, what player do you expect to step up most with current injuries and Gold Cup, Alex?
I think it has to be in the midfield. I think we've been talking about it a lot. I think it has to be Judson. With Godoy out, with the center back situation getting a little dicey, Judson really has to step up. And we talked about it earlier, how, considering how much Matias' system asked of his players, in these early summer months, it'll be a test of the depth of the squad and how long they can last. And I think Judson will be a really important piece of that.
I can't disagree with that. Judson is clearly somebody who has an opportunity now to be able to step up with the injury to Godoy and be able to show Matias what he can really do. And we'll see what he's able to do with that opportunity. I think another player who really needs to prove something, and he showed a little bit of it against Sacramento Republic, is going to be Vako. If Vako is going to stay with this team, if he wants to be here in San Jose, which I think everyone would say is probably a question mark, this is really also going to be his opportunity to be able to show that as well. And he's going to, I think, get more opportunities in both the central midfield and on the wing. Every game, I think, for him is meaningful, and I think is going to go further to deciding what his future is going to be.
In the past week, the MLS Players Union, I believe, released the salary sheets for all the team, and Vako is by far San Jose's highest earner, so he certainly has to justify that going forward.
Yeah, if you'd like to read a great article on that, Colin and I wrote one on Quakes Epicenter this past week. Please check that out.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some further discussion about player salaries and numbers for sure, which is important. As you guys know or don't know, MLS salaries are public, and you can view them online. And that's kind of an important part about this league that's transparent and honest and upfront and open with the rest of the public that a lot of people kind of miss sometimes, but all that information is right there, which is pretty neat. Back to your point here, I'm just going to counter you guys. I'm going to say Jackson Ewell, just because of the way that he's been playing. His form has been off the charts. He's been playing out of his skin. He's been that engine in central midfield, and he's basically been a whole new signing for the San Jose Earthquakes this year. So I do expect Jackson to continue to step up and do his thing, provide good passing in central midfield, and score a couple goals, from that last position, breaking to the top of the area, or as a number 10, as well.
And to speak to the MLS salaries, it's actually interesting because while the MLS salaries are public, we are given less information than in other American sports leagues. So there's a lot of areas, gaps which we have to fill, and that's part of the reason why sometimes it's tricky to figure out the trade situation and what the Earthquakes can do in the transfer market.
Yeah, this benefits the players because we're coming into a collective bargaining year here, and so this is something that the MLSPA does in order to be able to help with their leverage in bargaining with the owners.
Last note, former San Jose Earthquake and U.S. men's national team star Landon Donovan is going to be bringing a USL Championship club to the fine city of San Diego, California, which is a good look. I know he's been part of San Diego for a while, plays on the San Diego Sockers. This is an interesting move by Landon, but a move that I know that is important to him and important to the city of San Diego. Will there be backlash from Galaxy fans? Will there be backlash from Quakes fans? What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, if Sacramento Republic is awarded a MLS team, it's going to throw the balance in California uneven again. So who's going to play who in the rivalries? I guess we'll have to see because you can mark my words on this. Landon Donovan is not trying to create a USL Championship team. He's trying to get a team into MLS and to one of those final expansion slots that the league has already announced.
Look, as a supporter of U.S. soccer, it's always nice to see more teams coming into the system, especially in the lower leagues. I think the Quakes already have a USL partnership in Reno, so I don't know how much it applies to the Quakes, but it'll be interesting to watch from afar.
Well, that is our show for today. For everyone that asked us some questions and tuning in each week, we appreciate you. Brian Aboag, Alicio Sandoval, Jeff Vicas, Logan, Todd, Eric Santiago, Jamon Moore, Alex Morgan, the fourth member of our team, Joel Soria. My name is Charles Wollin. Our executive producer is Jason Sholl, and our associate producer is Aaron Sholl. We'll see you next week for another edition of Black and Azul. Feel free to interact with us, like, subscribe, or hit us up on Twitter at Black and Azul. Cheers, and have a good rest of your night.